What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the stream. It's Tuesday. We're getting tactical. We've got an early show today, 2 p.m. rather than 4 p.m. Eastern time, because later on this evening, 5 p.m., so 3 hours from right now, 2 hours and 54 minutes, we've got the T5ST Season 7 Invitational. So we're starting early on Tactical Tuesday, so we can wrap up, and I've got some time to prepare for that. But if you stick around after the show, please come and watch the coverage of that, because I think it's going to be freaking so sick. I'm super excited for the matchup. I think it's going to be amazing. And this has been one of the most exciting seasons of T5S2 Invitational, I think, that we've had in a while. And it's going to be the last one for a year, because we're moving to an annual series after this game. So super exciting. I'm pumped. I'm super duper psyched. What's up, everybody? How's it going in chat? Got a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. Dan Legion in chat. You are a legend. Love ya. And yeah, we got a lot to talk about. So as always, I've gone through and identified some interesting lists to discuss. Now, if you watch my video that came out this morning, you'll know that we had some interesting mix-ups. A lot of cool factions going undefeated. There's a Necrons. I don't know if I covered Necrons in my video. That might have been an oversight, honestly, if I'm being real with y'all. Oopsies. But yeah, tons of interesting results. Now, obviously, we do have sort of this domination from Eldar, to be fair, and I think that Genestealer Cults had a super strong showing, but I do wonder how much of it was because events had a previous rules cutoff and didn't use the latest version of the rules. I'm going to come out with a hot take for everyone here, and you can take this one to the hot take store and cash it in for some take tokens. I think that we're going to see Genestealer Cult fall off, to be honest. I think that they run into some brick wall matchups, which are super tough. If you have Mass Blast and you Deep Strike a lot, Genestealer Cults have a super tough time. So things like, I mean, I think one of the reasons we're seeing this Death Watch uptick, that's one of the in the title of the video, obviously. I think that Death Watch, or Space Marines, but also Death Watch in general, sort of have the number a little bit there. Interestingly, in my experience, Tyranids are a little bit tough. Just every weapon's blast, and they can deep strike spore mines. So you have to constantly protect your cult ambush tokens, very diligently. And I think with the new ambush rules, I do think it's more difficult for them to come back in a late game like they used to be able to do. So I might be proven wrong here, but I do think Genestealer Cults may have been curbed slightly. That's largely due to personal experience, but it'll be interesting to see if the numbers will follow along with that. Now, there's a lot of other stuff to talk about. We've got some undefeated Chaos Space Marines. Lead Super Major here, obviously, is the big event of the weekend, 200 players. But unfortunately, because of the time constraints on the format, they weren't able to put everyone, all of the undefeated players through. So over here on the BCP, we can see that there are several undefeated players who were able to make it to top 8, but did not get to play in the top 4 cut, which is why we see all these Eldari. I mean, Eldar is so good at killing people. It's so good at scoring secondary missions. It's clearly going to be the top scorer, which means it gets preferential treatment over these other factions that have a little bit tougher time. So we're going to talk about some Chaos Space Marines. We're going to talk about some Chaos Knights. We're obviously going to talk about all this Death Watch. There's so much Death Watch. It's like absolutely nuts. There's Death Watch and then more Death Watch and then Ultramarines also. So yeah, it's good. It's a good time. It's a good time in 40K. Saw an interesting nid list with 2 Biovores and 3 Molochs. Yeah, I talked about that on my video earlier today. I'm going to be honest. Maybe I'm missing something with Molochs. They seem totally fine, I guess. That it did look like, I think that was, I don't remember off the top of my head which event that was, that the Tyranids won North Star Open. If we look at the results here, first of all, this is an interesting result for Tyranids. Tyranids is so high scoring that we had these really, really fine wins, 74, 75, 61. And maybe it doesn't seem like it might have been just the missions that they played low scoring missions, because not a lot of these results are super duper high. But Tyranids, to me, I feel like either just die and don't score any points, or there's no way to stop them scoring every single secondary and like keeping parity on primary. So this is an interesting score for this Tyranid list. But yeah, Chase Garber's a Tyranid list with 3 Molochs in it. So interesting. If Mr. Garber here watches any of my videos, please leave a comment and tell me about your Molochs or PM me or something, because I'm so interested. Yeah, I mean, maybe I just didn't see it. That wouldn't be the first time that I just not understood the power level of a unit, but whoa, crazy. Correct you if you're wrong, Damn Legion. Deathwatch started 9th the same way, with a hiss and a roar, lost almost everything by the end of 9th. I don't know if I remember entirely what the trajectory of Deathwatch was in 9th edition. Hey!
Maelstrom Gaming Studios, Tyranid YouTuber, went 3-0 at his local RTT without Biovores. Can I send you his list?
Ryan, you can go ahead and send me his list. Does he have a video? Maelstrom Gaming Studios. Let's give him a look here. I honestly this could be another hot take. I actually don't think that Biovores are required. Oh yeah, here you go.
Hey guys, welcome back.
Here he is. What's up? Does he post his list in his thing? No. The list we use? This is a lot. I don't think Biovores are necessarily required to... Oh, here you go. A Narrow Tyrant, Hive Tyrant, 20 Gargoyles, 10 Termagants, Pyrovore, Raveners. Yeah, I think Raveners are slept on 100%. That unit's actually nuts. They have 21 attacks for a unit of 3 guys for 75 points. 21 twin-linked attacks. Are you kidding me? Plus, they have a redeploy. Plus, they're fast infantry. Like, they just have everything going for them. And that's one of the reasons I think that... I don't know if I've sort of talked about this in a video. I don't think Biovores are like... If we see the like nerf hammer come down on Tyranids and Games Workshop goes, all right, enough of this like uninteractive garbage play. Spore Mines don't count for anything anymore. I don't think Tyranids are actually out of the gate without Biovores. And honestly, it might also be a hot take too. I actually think, having played Biovores, I don't think that they're that bad without being able to score. I do think at 65 points they're too expensive, but the having an indirect fire devastating wounds gun just by itself that has blast and heavy is like actually pretty solid. There's been a lot of situations where you need to kill one more model in a unit and you have 2 Biovores point at it and then it goes away. So yeah, I think that this is a good example of a list that doesn't necessarily require the Biovores, right? It has the Ravener, so it has potential turn 1 deep strikes. It has rapid redeployment. It has a bunch of zoanthropes for damage. It has the Trigon. The Trigon's an absolute powerhouse for scoring. That thing can rapid ingress into like basically anywhere on the table. If you put it's T10. It's got a billion wounds. If it's put in a position where it's not super easy for your opponent to get line of sight to, it will survive that turn. It can then kill enemy scoring units. It can go, potentially even tune up enemy heavies, and put itself in a position to get a bunch of points. I think the Trigon's like a scoring monster for sure. And then this list just has like a super tough front line. Maliceptor, Tranifex, Double Heart Respect. Yeah. Seems solid. Yeah, Tyranids are interesting. And I think I said in my video earlier today, too, that I think Tyranids have a ton of build variety. And that is very unique in 10th edition right now. The depth of the Tyranid Codex is really interesting. Like, it doesn't have as many data sheets as Space Marines, but Space Marines are sort of locked into, like, you're playing Inceptors and you're playing Desolation Marines. And, like, there's some character combinations that you're basically locked into alongside those. And then the rest of your list, like, maybe there's Lancers, maybe you're in Deathwatch and there's Deathwatch Veterans or something. But the rest of the list is kind of preset, right? I think Space Marines are super strong, and a lot of their toolbox comes on the table with the flexibility of the faction. But I don't think that they have a ton of different like list archetypes available to them. I don't think the same is true for Tyranids. I think you could play Tyranids. I mean, as we've seen, right? Tyranids have won GTs with Swarms. Tyranids have done well in GTs with like monster heavy lists. You can play super finesse oriented lists with like a lot of interesting interaction like this one. Or you could just play like you can be a brain dead chud like me and play 18 Zoanthropes and like hope for the best. Neurotyrant with no bodyguard seems odd. No, not really. The Neurotyrant bodyguards are very bad. So, I would prefer a Neurotyrant with no bodyguard. The Neurotyrant and the Hive Tyrant kind of fulfill the same role. They only want to come out late game when all of their threats are either dead or preoccupied. So, you don't really need a bodyguard for either of those, to be honest. And I think you're mostly just, you know, if they were a T4, you know, 3-up save, like 4 or 5 wound idiot, then yeah, you probably need a bodyguard so you don't just get killed by indirect fire. But nobody's killing like a T8 or a T10 monster with an invulnerable save and, you know, cover and a bunch of defensive strats and just hiding behind a wall the entire time. Like, they don't randomly die. Your opponent, if your opponent's firing indirect, they have to put every single gun into a Hive Tyrant or a Neuro Tyrant to potentially have a chance of killing it. And then you might have Adaptive Biology, you might have Rapid Regeneration, and those make that just so much harder to do. So I don't think you need the bodyguards for them whatsoever. The Hive Tyrant, and I think to a lesser extent the Neuro Tyrant too, they're very much a late game piece. And I wonder if there's also a combination there too, because the Neuro Tyrant's kind of slow, but it's got a really good flamethrower. And if the Hive Tyrant's standing next to it, it gets assault. So you can actually sort of like dream team the two. Where the Hive Tyrant's like, oh, I get bogged down by idiots, and the Neuro Tyrant's like, Flamer, go! And then the Hive Tyrant blows up a big character or a little vehicle or something. Would love to see Deathguard get above X and 1. Yeah, Scott, same. Same. Now, we do have some factions that are traditionally pretty low that we're going to be talking about today, which I'm excited about. So should we get into it? Let's jump into some lists. Seems like Tyranids is score high. I also have a lot of Zoanthropes. Yeah. Zoanthropes are, I think, I mean, they're the best, like, combat unit in the Codex, for sure. They're a little, like, one-dimensional. You know, they're like a slow, short-range shooting unit. So if your opponent can outmaneuver you, they just get wrecked. But, you know, that's what, like, Rapid Ingress and the Assault Gun is for. Largely, I think the Tyranid game plan for most Tyranid lists is to toilet bowl the game on Maleceptors. So you have Maleceptors as this unit that's just, like, basically impossible to efficiently kill, and so your opponent has to overcommit to kill them, and in doing so, they move into range of the Zoanthropes anyway. So the Zoanthropes aren't this Alpha Strike unit. They sit in the back line, they sit behind a ruin, and they make sure that they're like 31 inches away from the middle of the table, and then they have to like roll a 2-inch advance to shoot into basically anything that goes to fight the Maleceptors. And it's just kind of like, the longer your opponent is staying away from the Maleceptors, the more primary you get, and that's where Tyranids really fall down, is primary score. You're going to score secondary really easily, so the primary is where you need to get a huge leg up, and if your opponent's scared of 18 Zoanthropes, then they're not going to go there, or 12, or 9. After Tyranids won against Space Marines? Oh, in Battle for Agram? Yeah, I wouldn't look at Battle for Agram stats too much. There's it's a starter set games, right? It's a lot of new players. I think the Tyranid box in Leviathan is way weaker than the Space Marine one, but it's also like you have to work harder to win with it. So I think the Tyranid players get smarter than the Space Marine ones. I don't know. It doesn't really mean that much, honestly. It could be rigged. They could have just made up a number for sure. They haven't done that in the past, but who knows? Yeah, ultimately, I don't think it matters too much. Are Space Marine units using big blobs with character support or smaller units? So yeah, if we want to look at a Space Marine list, we can. I did talk about this one in my video earlier today, and I guess I can reiterate it real quick. If you want a deeper breakdown, I talk about some of the combos in this list. If you want a deeper breakdown in this list, watch my video from this morning, the best list in 40k. It was the one with Canis Rex on the front. But yeah, it has... It's running a Captain for free strats, a Watchmaster. He can also unlock repeated strats. And then he has Tome of the Ectoclade, so you get 2 Oaths of Moment targets once per game. And it works. It's better than Gilliman's double Oaths ability. Gilliman's double Oaths ability is that if you kill your first Oath targets, his second one unlocks. Tome of the Ectoclades just says you reroll against both of them. So it's a little bit better, but it is only once per game. But it gives you the ability to really like alpha or beta strike your opponent if you need to. And then we are running the big bricks. So there's 3 units of Deathwatch veterans. So these are just mini Marines. They get to take a bunch of Thunderhammers, which I believe, if I remember correctly here, the Deathwatch Thunderhammer is retained 3 damage because they have heavy Thunderhammers. But I might be totally wrong about that. Let me double check here. Here's the Deathwatch veteran datasheet. Yeah, they did. So I mean, look at this profile chat, right? We're talking like actual 9th edition melee profiles. 3 attacks, 4s, unfortunately, but that's probably fine. 10 AP2, 3 devastating wounds. Are you kidding me? What a profile. And then the Deathwatch chapter, their combat doctrines, it's either lethal, precision, or lethal hits, sustained 1, or critical precision, which is garbage. But you can then sort of, buff, especially with sustained hits, buff the output of the Thunderhammer, and then also, if you're hitting your Oath target, you get more chances to roll the 4+, you get more chances to sustain, you get more chances to devastate. You also get rerolls into Xenos, non-Imperium or Chaos. So, yeah. So on top of that, they get pretty good sort of actual armor cracking melee, which is kind of hard to find in Space Marines, to be honest. A little bit weird, but Space Marines got a little tanked in the melee department. Then you also have these frag cannons, so it's 2d3 shots within 9. Unfortunately, when they deep strike, they can't go inside 9. To my knowledge, I don't think they have a way to do that, but they can rapid ingress themselves, and then maybe move to 9 inches away. I don't know. But then they're 2d3 shots, blast, 2d3 shots, win in rapid fire, blast, ring 7, AP1 for 2 damage. So just a ton of blasting, high strength, high damage attacks. So they're solid at shooting. They're good in melee. And then you have Proteus Kill Team to follow that up, which is basically the same thing. You get 4 frag cannons, you get a Deathwatch Thunderhammer, and then you get 4 Terminators. 3 of them have Cyclone Missile Launchers. I think sometimes you kit those guys. There was a hot minute when you could kit them with Assault Cannons. I don't know if that is still the case. I think you might have to pick one or the other. Yeah, you can only take the Cyclone or the Assault Cannon, unfortunately. But you can take Thunderhammer Storm Shield, I think, and still take the Missile Launcher, if I remember correctly, too. Is that right? Yeah, so you... Oh, no, you can't, because this Cyclone Missile Launcher doesn't get any other options. Okay, yeah, so you're stuck with a Power Fist. Oh, no, you only have a strength 8, 2 damage melee weapon. That sucks. And then I guess the fourth guy is a Storm Shield dude to sink odd damage hits into, so his wounds go a little bit farther. But yeah, again, these guys, just another good hybrid unit. We've got 4 frag cannons, 3 Cyclone Missile Launchers, solid melee with the Thunderhammers and the Power Fists, and then the ability to teleport around the table. And then Inceptors, because they're nuts, super strong, with the 3-inch deep strike, a Desolation Squad, and we have a Land Speeder even to buff the Desolation Squad. And a Repulsor who can carry around, I think, one of the Deathwatch veteran teams. That's the way you get them into rapid fire range with their blast weapons. So that's what a lot of the Deathwatch lists are running. We can actually take a look at some other ones from the US. So that was Leeds, and the US is going to be playing a little bit different, it looks like. This is Mark Hurdle. This list was X and 1. I think this is a 6-round event, so he was 5 and 1. Yeah. Running a Gravis captain and another Watchmaster. This one probably has aggressors, I assume. Oh, an Eradicator squad. Okay, so this is triple Inceptors. One of them's a 6-man Inceptor. That's crazy. With Assault Bolters. I guess you can give the 6-man Inceptors like lethal hits, and then you can just fish for 6s, and you get an auto wound, and then double whatever 6s you roll, because they're sustained 2 on the Assault Bolters the Inceptors have. But the Inceptors are super nuts for completing secondaries and just for mucking with your opponent. 1 Desolation Squad, as is to be expected. Big Eradicator Squad for the Gravis Captain to go in. 2 Rhinos to carry 2 Deathwatch Veteran Squads. Yeah, frag cannons and Deathwatch Thunderhammers, it looks like. So sort of the same deal. And then we have a captain in one of them and a librarian in the other one. To give them a 4+ invulnerable save. Kind of makes up for not having too many shields. Seems good. I wonder if there's ever a consideration to put the Desolation Squad in the Rhino against opposing indirect fire too. I would be surprised if that never happened. Damned Legion became a granddad again. Congratulations, man. That's super sick. Hope everything's progressing well. Regular Space Marine could use Gravis Cannon and laser squads. Like Eradicators, because Devastators will go bye-bye at some point. I mean, maybe. I think the problem that you get to is that you start to just, like, create these, like, ridiculous number of profiles. If you try to recreate every single weapon, every single Devastator weapon within the Primaris line, then you just, like, you sort of go ham. We'll get to that point eventually, but I kind of dread it. Where there's just entire unit data sheets that are totally worthless because, like, oh, these guys have grav cannons and grav cannons aren't good right now. So this entire, like, box of, you know, the intergravers are super garbage. I actually think the Primaris line is becoming more, like, more rounded, and as we're seeing, they're doing a pretty good job of, like, sort of incentivizing you to take the Primaris stuff. I think most of the games that I played with Space Marines, the only Firstborn I have on the table are Scouts for the most part. Should Inceptors go Assault Bolter or Plasma? Usually I go 2 of Bolter, 1 Plasma. The Plasma is good if you are knocking wounds off of vehicles, because a lot of vehicles the Bolters wound on 6s, which is tough. And the low AP and the Bolters really hurts. But the Bolters are generally better because what the stuff that Gravis stuff that Inceptors want to be shooting at is usually like opposing light infantry and characters. So they don't usually need the Plasma, and the higher volume attack is typically better. But it's kind of like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, honestly. Like, the Bolter is better for volume. The Plasma is more consistent and does more damage. So, you know, whatever you're facing against. If you're like, everyone's running Terminators and big vehicles, then you probably want Plasma. But if there's a reasonable number of, like, heavy infantry armies or, like, lone operative characters you can snipe, then the Bolter's probably better. Oh, question about the title? Okay, so here's the thing with the title, chat. I guess I should have led with this. So according to... Yeah, let me pull up the our Meta Monday article, because there's some spicy statistics being discussed in Meta Monday. So here we go. This is why the title of the video is Space Marines are the only good faction in 40k. 3 factions in this weekend had a win rate above 61%. GSC, Eldar, Deathwatch. Every other faction in the game, according to this article, obviously I don't vet their math. Although this is Meta Monday. Pretty sure their math is solid. Every other faction in the game had a 49 win rate or below. So. So right now, GSC and Eldar, I mean, I made a hot take that people probably will disagree with. I think GSC are going to drop pretty quickly, but we'll see. But I think it's even if GSC's win rate goes down, I think it's fair to say that they'll probably still be better than every other faction in the game, besides Eldar. Eldar are ridiculously dumb. Every other faction besides them is garbage, except for Deathwatch. And by extension, Space Marines, obviously. So, I mean, really, like, everybody's getting kept down by these top 2. I think Deathwatch have a solid matchup into GSC, which is why they're sticking around at the top here. They get rerolls against Xenos with the Deathwatch veteran units. They get they have Desolators, they have Inceptors. Those are 2 super strong tools against Genestealer cults. If Genestealer, so the way the interaction works, generally speaking, is that the Desolators are so good at removing entire Genestealer cult units from the table because, like, you know, it's a 20 model unit. You're shooting 10, 11 blast weapons. You get plus 44 shots against the Genestealer cult unit. You almost don't even need any buffs to kill the entire unit on average. So you destroy a unit, they place a token down, if they don't protect the token super well, so if they don't basically like literally surround it with models, or they place it in a Clamavus aura, and by in a Clamavus aura, I mean wholly within 3 inches of the Clamavus, I think is the distance, then the Inceptors kill it immediately the next reinforcement step. So Space Marines are all, I mean, and especially these Deathwatch lists, right? Like all these Deathwatch veteran squads have tons of rapid fire blast weapons. The Deathslaters are blowing people up. You know, Space Marines generally have high volume attacks anyway. And you're clearing infantry away. Those cult ambush tokens, they're not automatically killed, but the Genestealer cult player has to like bend backwards through these hoops in order to keep those cult ambush tokens alive by surrounding them with bodies. And with the new cult ambush rules, the closer you are to other GSC models and the farther away you are from the fight, the less models you're going to get back on the table and the less models you're going to get back in relevant positions. So previously, you would lose a unit, place the cult ambush token on your table edge next to a Clamavus. Nothing could ever touch it. And then you would bring back the unit, string 20, like 15 or 12 dudes, you know, a billion inches forward across the table. And then you would put all your seismic cannons and grenade launchers in the front and you would shoot again with that unit. Now, because you have to deploy them so defensively against 3-inch deep strikes, that you end up potentially losing models to coherency because the space they have to go into is so compact that if you have other Genestealer cult models inside it already, then you start to run out of space. But they also are like 1 or 2 turns away from actually interacting with your opponent's army. So it's like a huge change, and it's definitely not unstoppable. The Space Marine game plan against it, but Space Marines do have like basically a bunch of tools that's very good specifically against Genestealer cult, which is I think why we are seeing these numbers happen right here. This 69%, first of all, nice. Secondly, it was interesting that it seemed to be largely in smaller events. So the stuff we can look at for GSC wins, and I mentioned this on my video this morning. Genestealer cults won. This is like a 38, I think. They went 4-1, another like 36 person event. This is a 24. This is a, I think 28 maybe. This is a 24. So these are largely very small events where they could probably like dodge their tougher matchups. Whereas the bigger events, we didn't see Genestealer cult have the same success. I don't know. That might just be anecdotal, but it does seem like good players are sort of like learning the ropes on how to deal with the faction and keep them down. Is my opinion. Arbites got buffed in Kill Team? Hell yeah. Let's go, Arbites. Woo! Anyway, that was a really long conversation about Deathwatch, and that's why Space Marines are the only good faction in 40k. The other broken factions that have a really good win rate are broken and lame. But Space Marines are not only not lame, also not broken, but have a good win rate. So they're just all coming up gravy for them. Deathwatch won't last long? That could be true. I do think the level of Space Marine tools is probably going to see them be pretty decent moving on to the future. I think that it is unfortunate, and it's just sort of a fact of life for Index Hammer right now, where a lot of armies are just sort of pigeonholed into a single build that we already talked about for Space Marines. But I do think that Space Marine build is legitimately very strong. So I think, you know, there's a lot of people who are you know, doing their own thing and who want to play the Space Marine army that they want to play, and I think that's totally fine. They should be allowed to do that. But the thing that a lot of people are doing is sort of conflating the power level of the Space Marine faction with the people who are playing like, oh, I want to play nothing but Sanguinary Guard, or, you know, I want to play all this other stuff. Whereas, you know, if you rock Inceptors and if you rock Desolation Marines, I think the faction's legitimately super good. GSC love it when your vehicles ram them and shut them down. Yeah. Yeah, it's also like the fact that Space Marines are rocking lots of Gravis armor right now. Like, we see aggressors pretty often in Deathwatch. I guess we haven't looked at this Deathwatch list. We see aggressors pretty often, eradicators pretty often, tons of Inceptors, right? Those are really good against Neophyte hybrids, because a Neophyte hybrid unit will never kill an Inceptor unit in melee, and the Inceptors can shoot them if they remain engaged. So an Inceptor squad jumps within 3. If you rapid ingress them into a position where they don't get killed by a small arms fire because they're T6 versus a strength 3 gun, they're not going to they're not going to take that much damage. So if you ingress them or deploy them out of range or out of a position where they're going to get killed by grenade launchers and seismic cannons, then the Inceptors just get to do their thing. They move up, they like blast a bunch of dudes to death, and then they charge the unit. Then the unit just has to keep falling back, because if they don't, the Inceptors, they'll do no damage to the Inceptors. The Inceptors will like punch 4 of them to death, and then shoot them, and then keep them in melee for another turn, and they just slowly die. Inceptor's really good. This one has an Indomitor kill team. Yeah, this list is, speaking of Gravis, oh my god, this list is all in on Gravis. Holy crap. We have Eradicators, we have double Inceptors, we have a big Indomitor team, 5 heavy Interceptors, 2 heavy Bolters, looks like 2 Aggressors, 1 Eradicator, and 1 Multi-Melta Eradicator, and then 2 Inceptors with Plasma. Damn, son. All right. Yeah, we're a Gravis all day, every day. Apparently. Yeah, this list is pretty spicy. We have a Storm Speeder Thunder Strike. I have to remind myself which buff the Thunder Strike grants. Let's go find it. Goddamn, Space Marines have so many data sheets. There's a Hail. Thunder! +1 to wound against monsters and vehicles. Yeah. So we're already bringing, like, mass gunshots with... Oh, this has Infernus Heavy Bolters in it. The Combi Heavy Bolter with a Heavy Flamer on it. That's so sick. That is technology right there. 3 Cyclone Missile Launcher guys. Yeah, and then just like a billion bolt rifle and heavy bolter shots. This is like heavy bolters the list. Assault bolters. Yeah, we got plasma exterminators everywhere. We got assault bolters, and then you give it all +1 to wound against a vehicle. You can even +1 to wound a vehicle and shoot it with the Desolation Squad, and they start wounding vehicles on 5s rerolling, and it gets really gross. With their indirect fire weapons. The Gravis Captain's also kind of a Chad. And so every time I have the opportunity to take that guy, I like him. He's half damage, and then he has two melee weapons. He can have a Power Fist as his main attack, and then he can either take like the Chainsword. He can get another Power Fist attack as a secondary attack. If you upgrade him with a relic weapon, so like the Honor Vehement or the Thief of Secrets, it actually affects all of the weapons he's equipped with. So he gets the buff on both his main weapon and his side weapon. In Gladius Task Force, that guy has 10 attacks in Assault Doctrine, because he gets 3 attacks from his fist and 7 attacks from his off fist and 7 attacks from his main fist. And there's Strength 10 AP 2 damage, I think. He slaps really hard. This was Battle to End Alzheimer's, chats. That's this one right here. Had 2 Deathwatch at X and 1. 2 Eldar at the top, what a shocker. But then 2 Deathwatch at X and 1. Earlier I mentioned an imbalance with the Leviathan set. What models would I recommend as first models to complement the set and bring it more into balance? That's a great question. So I think the Leviathan sets are... The Tyranid set is like 100 points down from the Space Marine one, if I remember correctly. I think the Tyranid set just needs like ways to crack armor, honestly. The problem is that like they can probably keep parity with score with Space Marines, but they'll never ever kill them with the stuff that's in that set. Like it's all like AP1, AP2, like kind of mediocre. So I think you could take like 3 Zoanthropes and like stick it in there. Would probably be the number one. I believe that brings them closer to the same points value. And then it gives Tyranids a way to actually like deal with the Ballistus Dreadnought, because they don't really otherwise. Every time I've seen that set play against each other, the Ballistic Dreadnought shoots the Screamer Killer to death and then survives for the rest of the game, like just wandering around the table. There's nothing really you can do about it. Throw a Maleceptor? That might be too far. I might go too far the other way. I don't know if the Space Marine Leviathan set can kill a Maleceptor. That is kind of the problem with talking about like super small points value 40k though, is it like units defensive profiles, especially this edition where they tried to make things hard to kill. Units defensive profiles often outpace the level of firepower that armies can bring against them in this small format. Honor of Movement doesn't work on the relic weapon due to extra attacks. Is that true? Does it have a stipulation against extra attacks? If so, I was not aware. Is it a core rule thing? Oh, you're right, chat. Yeah, no, you're totally right. Extra attack weapons don't get extra attack modifiers, but you do get the strength characteristic modifier. So yeah, it's only, I guess it's only 8 attacks from that guy, but it's still strength 10. Yeah, that's a good call out actually. That's I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know that. And I think that's the only, I guess there's probably some others. There's other like models with extra attacks that can get relic weapons. I guess like Rend Masters are the other one that can get Argath, the King of Blades. Because they have 2 profiles. Yeah, there's not too many characters with multiple profiles, but that's good to keep in mind. Good call out, chat. Thank you for correcting me. How are Thousand Suns looking? Pretty good. We did have a Thousand Suns list undefeated at Boardroom Brawl. I don't know if I'm going to talk about that one today because I did talk about it in my video this morning. So go watch my video this morning. I'll talk about this list. David Burdett with Thousand Suns. Thousand Suns are very good. Thousand Suns, if we saw Eldar and Genestealer cards take a nerf, I think Thousand Suns are like right there in the top 3 to 5 maybe. They're really, really good. They're just very difficult to play. It's easy to just like choke and die with Thousand Suns because their rules are very complicated. All right, let's talk about some other factions, chat. I want to talk about Leagues of Votann because there is a undefeated Leagues of Votann list, or an X1 Leagues of Votann list, I should say, which I'm going to go find real quick because I'll put it on my face cam for while I'm looking. Oh, there's an X1 Drukhari too? Fuck yeah, dude. This weekend was so hype. Holy crap. But I promised Leagues of Votann, so that's where we're going to start. This was at... Why didn't I write it down? What a mook I am. Oh my god. What have I done? Oh, okay, we found it. All right. I was like, did I make this up? That we had a good finish on Leagues of Votann. All right, so this is at Boardroom Brawl, the event that I just literally talked about a second ago. So that's even more embarrassing that I missed it. Interesting thing about this event, it had a dramatic undershowing and underrepresentation of Eldar and Genestealer cards. And I think it goes to show you that 40k, and I said this in my video, I think 40k gets much more interesting if you have those factions get knocked down. And I think the mid-road factions are really, like, the metagame becomes very, very cool. There was, in terms of Genestealer cards, I think, yeah, just Alex McDougall played Genestealer cards. And then Eldar, there was just 2. Yeah, there's 2 Eldar, and both of them did not do very well. So, those factions...
Votann, the meme, the dream.
Ryan G, thank you for the super chat. Those factions are like really just straight up keeping the rest of the game down. But yeah, X1 Leagues of Votann. This was from Reese Davis. So congratulations to him. And he's running an Iron Master, an Einhir Champion, a Call, a big unit of Brokir Thunderkim, so the Iron Master can go in them, give them +1 to hit on their conversion beamers. And they can just chill in the back and get big They have +1 to hit, and then big big sustain with the conversion beam weapon. The conversion beam special rule. 2 units of in here Hearthguard, 3 Hecaton land fortresses, 3 units of Hernkin Pioneers. I think the Hernkin Pioneers are kind of required, I'm going to be honest, for Votann, because you want this unit that can move out really aggressively. They actually complete objectives with alacrity. The rest of the faction is relatively slow, so Hernkin Pioneers are the unit that you're taking to be able to run them in and do things like do midboard actions on turn 1 or go do investigate signals or something. So those guys are kind of important. The Hecaton land fortresses are just big bricks. Obviously, they're very difficult to kill, especially with the 2+ save and cover with high toughness value. So they're tough. They don't hit super hard, but the Magnum Rail Cannon obviously could always just devastate when we you, and it gets really awkward when it turns you into soup. And then we have in here Hearthguard to teleport around the table and get work done. And the Thundercant acted as a fire base alongside the land fortresses. Seems solid, chat. Interesting that we are on kind of we're less on the high model count, trying to get judgment tokens out of losing models, besides the Hernkin Pioneers. The Hernkin Pioneers are also good because they're not super expensive, and when they die, they'll generate you judgment tokens on your opponent. So they're going to go do an action, get you victory points, die, get you a judgment token, and it kind of works out. But other than that, we're not really running that many, or at all, Hearthkin Warriors. We're not running any Sagittors. We're just running the big guns in the back. Votann, making it happen. Let's go. The Deep Rock Galaxy Squad. Yeah, we also had Drukhari down there. So there's some Leagues of Votann action for you today. Again, also Drukhari at X and 1. Dude, the meta of this event was nuts. Thousand Suns Imperial Knights at the top. Two factions you would expect to do well, but obviously the event where Eldar didn't win somehow. And then Orcs at X and 1, Drukhari at X and 1, Leagues of Votann at X and 1. Super sick. So let's talk about Drukhari. JT McDowell, congratulations on X1 with Drukhari. We're running an Archon and a Homunculus with Art of Pain to get some pain tokens. 1 unit of Cabalite Warriors. With a Dark Lance and a Blaster. That's probably for the Archon to go in, give him wound rerolls with his ability. A Rack unit, probably also for the Homunculus to go in. 2 Venoms. Now, the cool thing about the Venom, the thing that's kind of nice about them is they let you split the Cabalite Warriors into combat squads. So you can put the heavy weapon team in with the, however you want to split it. You can put the heavy weapon team in with the Archon, so the Archon gives them wound rerolls in their heavy weapons. And then you have another 5 dudes who aren't just like sitting with the Archon in the back all game, who can then go into the Venom and run and complete secondary missions. Double Chronos to regenerate pain tokens. 3 Ravagers with triple Dark Lance. 1 Mandrake unit for doing secondaries. 3 Reavers. Yeah, these things are sweet too. For 25 points apiece, you get the Cluster Caltrops gives them essentially an extra dice on their Eviscerating Flyby. So they can do a bombing run effect where they do a mortal wound out of 4+ based on the number of models in the Reaver unit, and the Caltrop gets you a reroll on one of them. So they're averaging at that point 2 mortal wounds. I believe that's how the mechanic works. I'll just verify that real quick before I misspeak here. They're averaging 2 mortal wounds from the flyby, and then they also get a Heat Lance. And the Heat Lance has Assault, so they're a base move, I think a move 16er. And they can also advance and perform actions, so they're super good at secondaries. Yeah. So it's 3 models in the unit. You roll 1 d6 for each model in this unit. Yeah, on a 4+, you take a mortal wound, and then the Caltrop gives you a reroll. So it's basically 4 dice at that point. So you probably average 2 mortal wounds, which is kind of nice, especially if you don't need to advance to begin with. It's just extra damage for you. And then the Heat Lance is a big strength 14 gun, but also lets you advance and do actions, which is great. So Reaver is super duper strong utility unit. And then double Scourges with Heat Lances, or 1 with Heat Lances, 1 with Dark Lances. Interesting. Plus 6 Talos with Haywire Blasters. So that's the anti-vehicle devastating wounds. I think the difference is that the Haywire Blaster is a 2-shot twin-linked weapon versus they can either take a Heat Lance, which is only 1 attack. So the Haywire Blaster has lower stats, It's only strength 3 AP 1 versus the Heat Lance is strength 14 AP 4. But you are super good against vehicles, right? Because you basically auto-convert. It's super tough if you don't miss any attacks, which is a little bit unlikely. But you're spending point tokens on them probably. You're then hitting on 4s, re-rolling with 2 shots. Like, it's not unlikely. Out of the unit of 2, you probably hit 3 times. And then it's super unlikely with wound rerolls because they're twin linked not to convert those into devastating wounds. So those guys are good for 9 mortal wounds into a vehicle almost 100% of the time. And I think that's probably higher average damage than the Heat Lances. Now, the Heat Lances are better into non-vehicles, like monsters or characters. But the Haywire Blast is not terrible just because it's twin linked. So they're fishing for 5s or 6s on most things. But because they have twin linked, it's like not the end of the world. So I think people have kind of come around at that. The difference is that it's not assault, so they can't advance and do stuff, but that's not really that big of a deal for the Talos, who doesn't want to advance anyway. Cool stuff. It's cool to see the Talos on the table. I wasn't sure how to feel about them, but they have like a good like allotment of weapons. They have the twin-linked liquefiers and the anti-tank gun makes them good into like most situations. They're just kind of expensive, I think, for what they do, which is unfortunate. Sick. A good list. Saw Talos in last week's build as well. Oh my god. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think like basically every profile that you could squeeze super like armor cracking weapons on was good in Drukhari. Drukhari feel like they have a little bit of an Adeptus Sororitas problem where they run out of good profiles to take, where you're like, well, I've already windmill slammed 3 Scourges, like this warrior, the characters that I want, maybe an Incubi unit, like, maybe the bodyguard for the Archon, and 3 Ravagers. Except that, like, Ravagers and Scourges are basically free, right? So all that stuff is, like, less than 1,000 points. So, like, what do I spend the rest of my points on? I guess it's Reavers and Talos. And it just seems like the faction kind of is a little hurting for like effective profiles, but this list seems like it's got it down. Good stuff, chat. All right, what else do we want to cover today? I think those were the big pickouts for me. We also, excuse me, no, that's not everything. We have some undefeated lists from Leeds to talk about that I think it's sad that they didn't get to play in the top 4. But Chaos Knights and Chaos Space Marines both went undefeated, either 4-0, 1, and 5-0. So let's talk about them. Let's do Chaos Knights first, because we haven't been seeing a lot of Chaos Knights recently. Chaos Knights kind of fell off the bandwagon after the Towering nerf, right? They were really good when the edition came out because they were knights, but they could go through walls. They were trixier, they were faster, they didn't do as much damage, and they weren't as survivable, but they had other interesting effects, and they got all the benefits of Towering. Once the Towering units got hammered, Imperial Knights sort of retained their power level just by being tough and good at dealing damage. But once you had less models on the table, less Towering models on the table, the Chaos Knights, like Trickery, didn't quite mean as much, so it's nice to see Chaos Knights back in here. Black Templars lists. We'll take a look at some Black Templars list, chat. We'll see if we can find any. Black Templars like the crowd favorite. Everybody loves those guys. Every time we go find lists. So we're running a Tyrant this time around with Panoply of the Cursed Knights. So that is the interesting thing about Chaos Knights, and I think it's a difference between Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights largely because this list is double Tyrants. Holy crap! Because Chaos Knights don't have their baked in damage ignore. So I think that it was probably a consideration that the compounding defensive effects of the Knight Tyrant being toughness 13, having a base 2+ save, and in the Dominus classes in Imperial Knights, then also having a ton of wounds with a Fail No Pain on top of that, just sort of compounding all of those together. They can't bring their equivalent to this relic, Grim Determination, I think it's called, on the Dominus classes in Imperial Knights, but you can in Chaos Knights. And it's weird and kind of idiosyncratic, but it does mean that the Chaos Knight Tyrant is actually like sort of significantly harder to kill than the Imperial one. And that's the one model in Chaos Knights that's true for. Yeah, so this guy, we're bringing one Knight Tyrant to go up in the front. The other Knight Tyrant has all the big guns on it. So he's got the big laser destroyer, the plasma cannon, the missile launchers. And then we've got a ton of demon allies. I mean, I think allies are kind of required for knights to be competitive. They don't have utility units in knights, and secondary objectives is knights' real downfall. They don't want to be throwing away 150-point armigers to be doing secondaries, so they usually are bringing in or holding like backline objectives. So they're always bringing in exaction squads, they're bringing in assassins, and in the Chaos Knights case, they're bringing in flamers and these Tzeentch lone operatives, so the blue scribes and the changeling. We also have Nurglings as well. They're 40 points and they can deep strike. It's just solid. They can't take objectives, but that's not the end of the world. And then 4 Wardog Brigands for the +1 AP against the closest thing. Extremely straightforward list. I think a lot of this list just toilet pulls your opponent on the Knight Tyrant, right? Like a Knight Tyrant with Armor of Contempt baked in from the Panoply of the Cursed Knights is so tough to kill. That guy's like impossible to remove. And if you can't remove him, he's just going to stomp around the middle of the table and flamethrower your army to death. So, seems good. And then you also have a Tyrant in the back to shoot. Less excited about the shooting on this guy. I think it's a little bit... I don't know if it's worth 555 for him, but it's not too bad. But I mean, again, you want to present this unified profile where all of your big knights are like impossible. This is impossible, like T13 chassis. And then you got Brigands to do some skirmishing, Demons to do some secondary scoring. And altogether seems pretty solid. And clearly it works, because we didn't lose the game. All right, let's talk about Chaos Space Marines. Peter Duff, undefeated with Chaos Space Marines. Look at this travesty. No ties on his record, solid scores. Didn't even bring Genestealer Culture or Eldar, and didn't get to play top 4. So sad. Oh yeah, this list is straightforward as hell. The army name is CSM.Obliterators, which is extremely appropriate. Again, we're bringing some demon reinforcements. So we're taking 5 Fleshhounds and 3 units of 3 Flamers to deep strike. And then Cypher as a lone operative. So we're not taking the demon lone operatives, we're just taking Cypher. But that's where the finesse of the army ends, because the rest of the list is Abaddon with 10 Terminators and 12 Obliterators. This is so straightforward. I love it. It just does what it says in the tin. Boom. So Abaddon the Despoiler goes to the Terminator squad, gives them every Chaos mark, so they get or every basically sub-faction keyword available to them. So they're Undivided, Khorne, Nurgle, Slaanesh, Tzeentch. They can do all the strats. They're just this super tough late game unit. With Mark of Nurgle, you can dark obscurate them so they can't be shot at outside 12 inches. And they just waddle around the table in late game for you. The Flamers do deep strike stuff and shoot infantry for sure. And then Obliterators are just good in every situation. They have a weapon profile for every weather. And they get once per game indirect fire. The Undivided one is where you, if you're not stuck in with the Terminator squad, which has the Undivided keyword thanks to Abaddon, that's where you throw your full reroll stratagem. So those guys can like hop in out of deep strike, declare indirect fire, full reroll themselves, and just blow something up from out of line of sight. It's kind of like rapid ingressing, but you don't have to pay a CP to do it because you could just shoot from behind a wall, so your opponent can't react to it. And then two Nurgle Obliterators again, because you can use Dark Obscuration on them if you really need to. Too solid. I mean, most Chaos Space Marine lists right now are running Obliterators. A lot of times we see that Undivided rerolls being put onto a Forge Fiend, which is less points, but clearly the Obliterators are what we needed here. Yeah, just like the Alpha Strike this list can produce from 12 Obliterators shooting you through cover or through line of sight blockers seems super nuts. And I think there's a lot of armies that just get crippled too much to deal with the 10-man Terminator squad. You really need to, like, it's a 2 or 3 turn process to kill that Terminator squad, because you can't shoot it. You have to get within 12 inches of it. You have to shoot it through stealth, probably, because it's probably still darkly obscured. Because it's a multi-model unit, if models get pulled, sometimes like your target availability can change. And then, even if you kill the Terminators, you have to deal with Abaddon himself. And he can just, like, 1 CP full reroll and just kill almost anything in the game in one shot. He's an absolute truck. T-Dog. Played this guy on TTS? Oh, that's sick. That's awesome. Yeah, the Obliterator seems so nuts. 320 points per unit is a lot, but it definitely seems worth it. Another Chaos Space Marine list at North Star went 3-1-1. Oh yeah, right here. Brandon Teal. Team Dirt Review. Good team name. This one's running Huron Blackheart. Oh, I'm gonna be honest, chat. I don't even know what Huron Blackheart does. Chaos Space Marines they're like the Ultramarines of the Chaos Super faction. They just have so many random characters. I have no idea what they do. Let's find out. Do I have them downloaded? Oh, I do. Yes. Huron Blackheart, where you at? There he is. No, that's an Exalted Champion. God damn it. That's what I get for not labeling my data sheets. Guy looks like Huron Blackheart. He's got the Red Corsair's armor on. Oh no, I can't find him. No! What have I done? Oh, here he is. Alright, we found him for the real that time. He gives you +1 objective control. Okay. You can redeploy 3 infantry units after deployment. And you can place them into strategic reserve regardless of the number of units in strategic reserve. So he basically lets you break your strategic reserve requirements. That is, after deployment, I think generally speaking, it's rolled before first turn begins, so you don't get to see who goes first. So you don't get the full benefit. But if you put deep strike models into strategic reserve, then you can bring them in out of deep strike rather than coming off the table edge. So I wonder if that is a way to get more obliterators in deep strike. I think it is. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to put 1 unit. We can put up to 500 points naturally into strategic. And then Huron Blackheart could just pick up the other obliterators and throw them in there too. And then you can also have all of the Siege Demons in strategic as well. So it's Abaddon just chilling. He doesn't have a bodyguard. Dude doesn't need a bodyguard. Who cares? He's got all the keywords. He doesn't need a unit. Does he get any benefit from leading a unit? No. Wild. Wild. I actually did not know that. Because all of his buffs, they affect his unit, but they also affect everybody else within 6 inches of him. So he doesn't actually need it. He's still 9 wounds with a 2+4+. He's like always in cover, and then he's just going to Dark Obscurate if you shoot him anyway. So, like, who cares? Why even bring Terminators? You don't even need them. Just makes him take spillover damage when his unit, like, eats crap and dies. Alright. Fair enough. Abaddon's like, this list is the Thanos meme of Chaos Space Marines. The Terminators didn't show up, and Abaddon's like, fine, I'll do it myself. He, like, puts on the Talon of Horus. Triple Forge Fiends, double Nurgle, 1 with Chaos Undivided, triple Obliterators, all with Nurgle. Probably Deep Striking. This list is silly. I love it. What do you think starts in... Do you think anything starts on the table? Maybe Huron himself, right? Because he doesn't have a unit to attach to. So you can, for up to 500, you can put... I think we're 10 points over putting all the Forge Fiends in reserve, right? That's 450 plus 4. Oh, no, you can exactly do it. Because it's 495 points. Is that right? 165 times 3? No, that doesn't sound right at all. Oh, it is. No, I nailed it. Yeah, 495 points for the 3 Forge Fiends. So you can strategic reserve all 3 Forge Fiends naturally, deploy all the Obliterators on the table, put all of these into Deep Strike, and then start, after deployment roll, Huron Blackheart just puts all of the Obliterators in reserve. And you just have, like, Abaddon. That's so zany. Just Abaddon versus the world. He's like, not only do I not even need a unit, I don't need an army. I'll fight you myself. That's sick. That's sick. Absolute meme chat. Oh my god. That's so creative. God damn, what a cool list. I would hate to play against that. I would have a conniption. I was like, what do you mean I have to screen the entire table all game? Because otherwise I just get, like, yeeted into the sun by a million Forge Fiends coming off the side. And, like, the rapid ingresses are just constant. The Obliterators don't even have to come in. Anything... I don't believe that anything targeted by Huron needs to come in by battle round 3, so you can just, like, hold them until your opponent's screens are all dead from Forge Fiends. And then you just, like, get to shoot the rest of their army to death in one turn. Oh, my God. That's so good. I love that. Oh, Brandon, you're in the chat. What's up? How's it going? Congratulations on pretty solid placement. Top 8 with this Chaos Space Marine list. That's a fun Chaos Space Marine list. Is that what typically happens? Everything goes into reserve? Oh, I see. You pointed out yourself for the for the list. I see what's up. All right. What else should we talk about, chat? We got some calls for Black Templars. We can take a look at some orcs as well. There's a bunch of orcs that did pretty solid this weekend. We were just looking through them over at Boardroom. There's a look at this score. 4-1 orcs at Boardroom Brawl. 300s. That 25 though. That's what happens when orcs need hard counter. They just get pooped on super hard. Yeah, it sounds like a fun list, honestly. So we got a big mech in mega armor, 1 Deathkiller War Trike with Follow Me. Badruk, the great man himself, 3 knobs and smash squigs, 1 with head whoppers kill choppa to get some devastating wounds going. Truck. Just 1 truck. That is 5 less trucks than we typically see, but we do have a battle wagon. 1 unit of flash kits, probably going in the truck. 3 units of Gretchen. Holy crap. We don't even have Zod, Grog, Snazbad to buff them. They're just sitting there. There's just Gretchen hanging out. Some Mega Knobs. 6 Squig Hog Boys. I know people are super high on the Squig Hog Boys right now for orcs. Just as like a super efficient, like aggressive unit that has a billion wounds and is tough to kill. 3 units or 2 units of Storm Boys, 1 unit of War Bikers. That's for the Deathkiller War Trike to jump into. Let's take a look at this Deathkiller War Trike real quick. Assuming I can find it. I haven't gone through and labeled all my data sheets yet. It's really killing me right now. Who played the Speed Freaks beta, by the way? Who's one of those jerks who played Deathkiller War Trike in the Speed Freaks beta? That thing was so broken. It was like playing on Easy Street. Man, the Orc Codex is so out of order. Everything's like messed up. It's also super big. Alright, I'm just gonna search it. So he grants +1 to hit, and then an auto 6 advance. Okay. So we can take the Warbiker unit and auto 18 advance them. They get +1 AP against enemies within 9. Their guns aren't that great, though. I guess they have twin link. The Daka guns are twin linked. Only 3 shots. 5 shots in rapid fire range, but that's 9 inches. But they are assault, so they'll shoot them on the way in. Yeah, that's not too bad, I guess. And then they themselves have Sluggers and Choppas. I like that they can be equipped with Sluggers and Choppas. You don't have to take all of the weapons if you don't want to, but you can for free. And then the Boss Knob can be equipped with a big Choppa Power Claw. It's not the most inspiring melee profile I've ever seen, I guess. But they are fast as hell. So I guess that makes sense. That's sort of the theme of the list, right? It feels like we want to threat overload to the point where you can WA and get any number of fast things in. Because we also have the Squig Hog Boys with Smash a Squigs joined into them. Yeah, they've got 3 strength 6 2 damage, and 3 more anti-monster, anti-vehicle, lance, strength 5, 2 damage. So they have 6 2 damage attacks in the charge, with +1 to wound on half of them and strength 6 in the other half. And then what does the knob on the Smash a Squig give them? +1 to hit, yeah. So he makes them hit on 2s and 3s, yeah. With sustain 1. And then the Smash the Squig knob. They get anti-monster, anti-vehicle on 3s, so that if you get Head Wappas Kill Choppa in there, they auto-devastate on 3s against monsters and vehicles. Seems good. Love it. Maybe we should look at regular Space Marines. Yeah, we had an Ultramarine in here, I think, from Battle 10 Alzheimer, I think. Yeah. This was 3-1 or 4-1-1. Actually tied at 85 against GSC. Look at that, chat. Are these like look at these. The same person here. Robin Roberts, super good GSC player, by the way. I've streamed him a couple times on the channel. At Everwinter, I think we streamed him. I think multiple games, honestly, if I remember correctly. What do we got going on here? Primaris Apothecary with Bolter Discipline, Robo Booty Gilly Man, a Desolation Squad, a Devastator Squad with 4 Grav Cannons. So interesting. I don't know if I like the Devastator Squad, chat. I guess like maybe you Stormify them in Devastator Doctrine, so they actually do some serious damage. They are 3 damage ranged weapons, but they're only AP 1, so you're kind of locked in on Stormify to be fair. But you do get the free strats from Gilliman. He makes anything that takes Stormify much easier. But that means you're not Stormifying the Desolation Squad. I don't know. I guess it's okay. It feels like a lot of work to make the Devastators do work, but it is a lot of damage on vehicles if you can punch it through. The low AP is the one downside of Grave Cannons, in my opinion. Gladiator Lancer, double Inceptor Squad, double Infiltrator Squad, double Scout Sniper Squad, Thunderfire Cannon. This is mostly as a concession to like Custodes and Necrons. The slower infantry-based armies can pose kind of a problem for Space Marines, especially if you're rocking all of this like anti-vehicle stuff, right? Like Gladiator Lancers, Devastators, even Desolators to a lesser extent. They don't really like to see heavy infantry on the table. And the Thunderfire Cannon just basically takes one of those units and kind of removes them for a period of time. It doesn't really actually do any damage, which is a little idiosyncratic. You look at it on the table and you're like, oh yeah, this guy's gonna kill so many infantry. No, it doesn't really actually kill that many infantry. But what it does do is it makes those infantry not be able to charge you for a turn, which is good. And then 2 Whirlwinds. Again, I think also a concession to that, you can Oath Moment something, double Whirlwinds from shooting out a line of sight. It's actually going to tune up a bunch of multi-wound infantry as well. And then if your opponent gets too feisty with the normal Space Marine lists, the Desolators and Gilliman will basically like 1-2 punch almost anything in the game. So if your opponent's running like Night Valiants up the table, you shoot it with 10 Desolation Marines with Oath Moment and then charge it with Gilliman and they'll kill it, no problem. No problem. Recently came to a realization you have to have a Thunderfire in Space Marines just because of the Custodes matchup. It does seem like it would be bad. I could definitely see needing some sort of like control. Lich Guard and Wraith Guard. Are you worried about Wraith Guard nowadays? Are people still taking those? Didn't just turn them into Wraith Knights? They didn't melt down their Wraith Guard into big Wraith robots? But yeah, I think this is the basis if you're playing standard Space Marines. In my opinion, Gilliman, if you're not playing Chapter Space Marines and you're playing Ultramarines, obviously. Hi, Inky. Inky wants to be on stream really bad. Inky, you want to come and say hi to chat? Come on up. Not really? No? Come here. Here you go. Whoa. Such a big kitty. Say hello. There she is. Look at this cutie pie right here. She would not leave me alone. So I had an interview. It'll come out later this week, but I had an interview with, oh my god, with some folks. Bit of a, like, bit of a I guess a conclusion to the saga of the Lone Star Open. And Inky would not leave me alone the entire interview. She's constantly just walking into frame, like pulling my arm and stuff while I'm talking to people. I'm like, Inky, I'm trying to be professional right now, Kat. What are you doing to me? You're ruining my image to all these important people. Definitely for Lich Guard at least. Yeah, Necrons are nuts, dude. I don't know what you do about them. So I have a game. It's scheduled for Friday. It's the Black Crusade. It's a Black Crusade undefeated match. I don't know if it's the finals yet, actually. I'm playing Space Marines, and I'm low-key hoping that Marneus Calgar and 6 aggressors will just kill a Lich Guard squad. I don't know if that's actually true, but I am running those units, and I am hoping that they will just turn a Lich Guard squad into soup. I feel like they have enough Power Fist attacks to do it. But also, it's Necron, so, like, who fricking knows, right? They wound Necron. They wound those guys on 4s. Like, they could just mess up. Because for some reason, they give them -1 to wound instead of transhuman. Whatever. Well, I mean, after I shoot them, obviously. There's not much else in the army to shoot at if you're running double Lich Guard squads. I'm a hopeful man. I guess I can put them down to winning on 3s, right? Because you can honor the chapter. And Marneus Calgar, I guess you don't... Unless you can, like, solo, like, 1v1 me, bro, or a can. Marneus Calgar probably doesn't, epic duel, right? Power Fist winning on 3 is pretty good. Because you do have a lot of those. And you have Victrix Honor Guard. Could happen. Any word on when the Codex will release? No. No insider information. Somebody asked me over the weekend. They were like, "Hey man, do you have any like inside scoop?" I'm like, "Dude, I know exactly as much as you do." I am on the grand scheme of the Warhammer totem pole. I am exactly where everyone else is. I'm very much on the outside looking in. But that's okay. That's where I'm with you guys. We're at the same point. Kill the Cryptothralls after they made 15 4+ feel no pain. Yeah. I mean, it's like super dumb, right? Necron. I think after Eldar like stopped being sort of like wildly overtuned, Necrons were probably needed looking at for sure. For sure. All right. All right. Let's see if we can find any Black Templars. We had a request for Black Templars. Oh no, Lawrence, why? Not a lot of Black Templars doing well, unfortunately. Just a 0-point draw. They just not show up to the last game. Like Legion. Didn't do very hot. Need more Obliterators, apparently. Hey, we got one. Boardroom Brawl. Again, Boardroom Brawl with the super cool lists. Where is this? I want to play in this meta. British Columbia. Oh my god. It's so far away. This is what I want to play, though. I want to play in Western Canada, because apparently Western Canadians have the most fun, I guess. This is where all the cool lists are coming from. God damn. All right. So Mark Ball with Black Templars, 4-1. What do we got here, my guy? Marshall Helbrecht, the Emperor's Champion. One big, huge unit of Primaris Crusaders. This is 5 Initiates and 4 Neophytes, so it's a 10-man? Yeah, it's a 10-man. Plus another 10-man Primaris Crusader squad. A Land Raider. 1 Sword Brethren squad. That's only a 5-er, it looks like. Yeah, that's only a 5-man squad. Plus another 5-man squad and a Land Raider. I guess the interesting thing about taking multiple squads is that you can sort of... They have, like, their modal weapon abilities, right? They get rerolls or they get extra damage. And you can sort of, like, pinpoint them at whatever you need to, instead of having to choose for, like, 10 models and then having them potentially... Having some of your models not have the right buff into some particular enemy units. A little bitty baby Terminator Assault Squad with Thunderhammers and Storm Shields. I wonder if that goes in the Land Raider. Plus a Vindicator. Let's go. And a Knight Crusader. Oh my god. I think this feels like a meme, right, chat? You're just like, we're playing Righteous Crusaders, so we have to take if we were to take an ally, it must be a Knight Crusader. Too bad you can't ally in like Adeptus Sororitas Crusaders as well. Genestealers and Space Marines this fall. Yeah, I know Tyranids are as far as I know, Tyranids are next month, and Space Marines are the month after that. But I don't know any dates. But that's just, I think, what has been released on the schedule. So there you go, chat. So 20 regular Crusaders, Land Raider, 10 Sword Brethren, 5 Terminators, and just a regular Knight. It's just a regular big Knight. Boardroom Brawl. What other secrets can you give us, Boardroom Brawl? Do you have any other like super sick lists that we've missed? There's a White Scar. Another 4-1 Orcs. Chaos Demons. It looks like they did ranking based on... Oh, they did. They did ranking based on battle points, not based on win-loss. That's wild. Tanya Gates. Is that War Mistress? Good for her. 3-2. With the Orcs. Plan to build Scout, Infiltrator, Phobos army for fluff. I mean, Infiltrators are sick. I mean, Scouts and Infiltrators are both very good units. If you want to break your fluff a little bit and back them up with some like beef, I think that army is actually fine. Eliminator squads are probably like a unit that hasn't been really explored yet, and definitely has some legs, I think. Like they get devastating when they stand still, right? So if you can set up a situation where they can just sort of like chill in the back and then just like plow D6 damage devastating into people, it's probably pretty solid.
Sisters need some help or someone needs to figure them out. Sad face.
Chad, I 100% agree with you, man. Yeah, Adeptus Sororitas really sad for sure. I mean, we can see if we can take a look at any list. We looked at a list yesterday. It was pretty solid. It was a 3-2 from Leeds, 66th place, top third. Let's go. I'm actually playing against Sisters on Thursday, I think. So I'll be streaming against Sisters. I don't really know what to expect, honestly. Sisters are one of those factions where it feels like a coin flip, where it's either like someone who's just playing the army because they like them, and they don't really have like a solid game plan, or it's someone who's super enfranchised in the army and knows them like back to front, going both ways, up, down, left, and right, and they'll just like kill you if you make a mistake. and it's like it might be the most stressful matchup, because you're like, I'm not supposed to die to Sisters, but my opponent could be really good, so I have to like try really hard to make sure. And like Sisters are one of those armies that are just like, oh well, if I like wombo combo these two things together and then also like stack a heaping helping of Miracle Dice on top to make all the dice work out, with like the Triumph of St. Catherine or something, like you just die actually. You're like, oh shoot, you're right, you got me there. This is running double Canonesses, double Immolators, double Rhinos, double Castigators. Hey, there's the Crusaders. What's up, guys? Triple Exorcist. A Repentia squad? What? This is what I'm talking about. Like, what does this unit even do right now? A Repentia squad? They're like T3 idiots that have 2 attacks. Do they hit good? I guess you're like, Overwatch me, I don't have a save, and your opponent's like, shoot, I'll do it. And they're like, aha, +1 to hit, idiot. Got you. I wasn't even gonna get those models into melee anyway. 2 Retributor squads, multi-meltas. Those guys are probably in the Immolators. And the Immolators have, if I remember correctly, they have fire support, I think. so that they can give wound rerolls. Is that right? Am I crazy? Or is that a unit that I can always think has fire support because it feels like it should and then it doesn't? Oh, they do have fire support. Thank God. Oof. Dodge a bullet. It's just so much I know about this faction. I'm just guessing what their abilities are. So the Immolators can shoot. They have heavy flamers, I think, is what we put on them, right? Oh no, multi-meltas and hunter killers. Okay. Well, you've got 3 shots. Oh, and a heavy bolter. As long as you hit one of those, you then trigger the wound rerolls for the Retributors. So at least at that point, the Retributors can get rerolls in their multi-meltas. So they're not entirely relying on Miracle Dice to convert their D6 damage shots. And then they can Miracle Dice the damage roll. All right. The only downside is you can't put stupid Canonesses in Retributor squads to give them hit rerolls. Doesn't make sense, but it is what it is. A Seraphim squad and 2 Zephyrim squads, mostly just for backline stuff. Well, I like the Retributor squad. It feels like a Little Fish of Fury-y, where you're paying 130 points for an Immolator and 130 points for the Retributors. So you're shooting 6 multi-meltas. 5 multi-meltas? 5 multi-meltas to people. All of them have wound rerolls, but for 260 points, like most other factions could just take like 2 Devastator squads and shoot 10 multi-meltas instead. Which is, you know, I guess you're trying to get what you can with Adeptus Sororitas, and somebody will get caught out by that and not really expect the damage output. Because generally people are like, well, sisters don't really have good damage output, and the answer is yes. But if you're shooting a bunch of Strength 9 stuff that rerolls wounds, it's actually not too bad. Not for good points, but at least it's there. From Sororitas, really think that the jump pack units look sick? Yeah. I mean, the jump pack units are both sick and good, right? Because, you know, deep strike, fast-moving infantry deep strikers are just solid. Like, Seraphim can contribute to the game without necessarily having to get into melee. The Zephyrim have to get into melee, but like they get reroll charges at deep strike. They're good for just like storming objectives if you need them too. And the Seraphim, you know, they can rock a bunch of Inferno pistols, so you can hold your drop until you need it for secondaries, and then if the unit survives, if the unit dies, it sucks, but you get Miracle Dice. If the unit survives, then you can go do things. You can go shoot Melta pistols at somebody and hope they die. I think, honestly, I think I've said it before, but I think that probably the strongest build in Adeptus Sororitas right now is actually tries to limit the number of Adeptus Sororitas it takes, but it like focuses on these units. So they have 70 point deep strikers. They have 22 point like Cyberwolf equivalents, right? 2 models for 20 points. 35 points for Death Cult Assassins who have like 1 billion attacks and fights first. And they can like storm these little tiny units and just put like 12 units in strategic reserve. And then also, you know, just like be popping off the table edge and just be like a super obnoxious to deal with, scoring tacticals. And then you can back that up with like the Exorcist if you need them. The Immolator squad's actually, I don't know, they're kind of growing on me. Maybe that's good. But you could also just take Imperial Knights as an ally and use them for your armor cracking. And I think that's probably pretty solid. This list feels a little bit like that. But I don't know if I could play a Sisters list and not Windmill Slam 3 Crusaders. Like, that unit just seems so good. Like, a 4+ vulnerable save, like 2 idiots for 20 points is, like, sick. If your opponent doesn't have indirect fire, they just hold your backline objective for the entire game for 20 points. Like, what's not to love? I don't know. All right. Well, let's see, chat. I'm going to do a little bit of a run through here. We're gonna see if we can spot any interesting stuff to talk about. We did a little bit of Chaos Demons. X1 at Leeds. Yeah, we can talk about Chaos Demons. This is Bethany Taylor. She was actually a T5S2 Invitational recipient back in the day. Oh, this isn't Chaos Demons. Get out of here, Bethany Taylor. God damn it. Do we have to complain about people misplacing their faction again? That was probably a misclick, honestly, because the Chaos Demons and Chaos Space Marines are right next to each other in BCP. But we already talked at length about Chaos Space Marines. We do have an X1 Chaos Demons at Battle End Alzheimer's. Pretty classic. Be'lakor, Bloodthirster, with Argath, the King of Blades, my favorite sword. Shalaxi Hellbane, 1 unit of Nurglings, 1 unit of 6 Flamers, 2 units of 3 Flamers. Fleshhounds, Fleshhounds, Fleshhounds. Fleshhounds are so sick, man. 14 points a model, you get a bunch of AP 1s, 25 attacks. You're super fast, you're beats, so you can go through walls. They're just like good value. Just good value. Good, clean value. 2 Soul Grinders with Tzeentch, Demonic Allegiance, but we don't have a Lord of Change. Interesting. So the Soul Grinders get the Harvester Cannon, so it's a AP1 3 damage gut, but then they also get the Warp Gaze, I think, which is basically just like a 48-inch range D6 plus 1 damage las cannon. So they're just a good backline shooter. They're super tough to kill. They hit super hard at melee. The problem is that points value, 215 for a unit that's like physically very large. They can't get shot early game because Bellacor's protecting them, which is good. But it's tough to maneuver them, I think. They can move over like small buildings and stuff, but they oftentimes like get their movement restricted by not being able to stand on them. I think it gets a little awkward for Soul Grinders, but if they're just sitting in the back and shooting all game, they're probably pretty solid. Good late gamers too. Got another Ultramarines X2. Space Wolves! 3-2. Oh, it's in Gladius Task Force, though. With an Apothecary Biologus. What's he going in? Whoa, double. 2 5-man Desolators? What is this list? He's going in Eradicator Squad. There's the Thunderfire Cannon, some Wolfguard Terminators. Yeah. All right, chat. Khorne Demons over here on Wars in the Shore. Oh, Bellacore though. He's not a Khorne Demon. He doesn't have the keyword. Double flesh. 30 Fleshhounds. Skulltaker with Bloodletters. This is a brave man right here. Bloodletters are really bad. They're good at taking objective for 1 turn, but the 95-point upgrade on him is expensive. Double Bloodthirsters. No Arganth, the King of Blades. Wild. Plus Scarbrand, plus Karanak. This is wild. Sick. There was a Necron list that actually we didn't talk about. I think I discussed Capital Clash on my video this morning, but I don't know if I actually talked about this Necron list, which I think I might just not have put in my notes, which is unfortunate for that video. Oopsies. But we can talk about it now. It's a Lord, Overlord, Technomancer. I mean, we were talking about how dumb Necrons were, and I think they might fly under the radar, to be fair. They get overshadowed by some stuff, like, Custodes and, Deathwatch, maybe to a lesser extent, like Thousand Suns. But I think that they're certainly nipping at the heels of Genestealer cults. And we had some crazy games with Necrons in the Invitational, too. Put Genestealer cults on the back foot, even pre-nerf, which is crazy. So we have a Hexmark Destroyer with Sovereign Coronal to give the +1 to hit. A Lord, an Overlord, double Technomancer, and a Sempiternal Weave Transcendent Catan. Technomancer has a Hyper Material Ablator for stealth and cover. Reanimator, double Cryptid Thralls, Death Marks. Love that. Get a little little deep striking unit with free Overwatch. They have free Overwatch, right? That's what Death Marks do. They also have just a good gun now. They finally got like 2 damage. Oh, they Overwatch people setting up from reserves. So it's not free Overwatch. It's not even Overwatch. They just shoot them. That's solid. And that's one of the better sniper rifle profiles in the game. Actually, might be the best sniper rifle profile. That's not like a character sniper, right? It's not Quietus or like Illic Night Spear. But a heavy precision 5.22. This is good. Just real good. Kill a Space Marine with that. Damn. 1 Doomsday Arc, 5 Flayed Ones for forward operators, 3 individual Locust Destroyers. I love you can take these in individuals now. I don't know if you could previously, but you would just always take Locust Heavies. And then, like, in 9th edition, Force Orc slots would restrict your playing the little utility units. But Yeah, Locust, a 30-point Locust Destroyer. Like, they've got a pretty good gun. They're kind of hard to kill. Like, you probably won't kill them with indirect fire. But even if you do, you, like, point an entire Manticore at a 30-point idiot, and your opponent's like, okay. 3 Locust Heavy Destroyers. That's largely so that you can lose one dude and then reanimate the second dude, I think. And we're not running a Locust Lord, so there's no reason to concentrate the Heavy Destroyers into one unit. 20 Lich Guard. And 3 Tomb Blades. So Lich Guard are all Dispersion Shields and Hyperphase Swords. So one gets a Lord, one gets an Overlord. So you get the Lord for the Resurrection Orb, and one of them, they both get Crypto Thralls, they both get Technomancers. Just Lich Guard brick things. Hashtag just Lich Guard brick things. Raze versus Ash was wild. Yeah, absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts. Any Chaos Knights? Yeah, we already talked about Chaos Knights, chat. We went through one already. Yeah, that game was like, I don't know. I called that game way too early. I was like round 4. I was like, I don't think Grace can come back. There's no way. And then it turns out like he had a plan. All he needed to do was kill a unit on his opponent's turn, basically, and he won the game. Absolutely nuts. Kudos to Raze too for like seeing the line as well. That guy, I know that he had come into the Invitational without really any 10th edition experience. And he was saying that he'd only played a couple games like in practice, but he had at least run through each of his matchups before he played it. And he was kind of like, I think, you know, playing from the hip for the most part, and was able to like just sort of assemble game plans in all of his matchups that his opponents weren't really considering. And I think it threw them off. They were like, all right, this is a kind of a weird Necron list. Like, what's it going to do? I'll just like ram into it and see what happens. And then that would lose them the game every time. Pretty wild. Except for the final game. And it turns out Adeptus Custodes can ram into your opponent's army just fine. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah. At this point, if you're still taking Eldar to events, you're a scrub power gamer looking for cheap wins. Yeah. I mean, not wrong. I know, so I played an RTT over the weekend, actually, and I didn't do a breakdown of it, but if we wanted to talk about it real quick before I sign off here, which is going to be in a couple minutes, I think. I can talk about my games because I did post them on X. It's no longer Twitter. You can't call it Twitter anymore. It's X now. Here's my X account. Did I never post my final game? Oh my god, I didn't, chat. I was so tired at the end of this. So this was, I had a invitational game. This is almost got to be an awkward situation. So I played this on Saturday. I had an invitational game scheduled for 8:30 p.m. My time. And the event said it was going to finish at like 7. And I was like, all right, this will be fine. I'll have plenty of time to get home and get set up. And then like halfway through the first round, the event organizer was like, well, we're going to take a long lunch break today. We're going to have a 90-minute lunch break. And I was like, just kidding. We're going to be late. So my last game, I rushed through it and I didn't actually post any pictures. But I played Tyranids over the weekend. I played Degenerate Double Malice after 18 Zoanthropes, like a true Chad. Played against some Ultramarines. My opponent had some gorgeous Repulsor Executioners, by the way. Very, very cool. It was like double Repulsor Executioner, Land Raider with a bunch of aggressors in it. You push the aggressors really hard. They all got blown up by Zoanthropes popping out of cover. And the Repulsors have sort of dominated the flank for a while, but it wasn't quite enough to beat my secondary lead because we just seeded Spore Mines everywhere and scored 1 billion points. Gilliman went in to try to sort of retake the middle after the aggressors went down. Unfortunately, took some damage to Overwatch. Took I think 1 Maliceptor shot to the face and then died. Didn't respawn. Poor guy. I was all set to get my Hive Tyrant in there and have an epic fight. I did get my epic fight in the 3rd game, and then played against Tau in round 2, and he put a bunch of stuff in reserve. He had 3 big Crisis bricks. One was on the table to begin with. Everything else was in reserve, basically. A bunch of Vespid, bunch of Crisis. And I lucky for me, I got the first turn and was basically able to like screen everything out. So we had Gargoyles pushing forward super hard in the first 2 turns of the game, and then after that they got replaced by like Termagants and Spore Mines. And he just wasn't able to drop his Crisis teams in any good position. It was largely like a go first kind of deal, but I think that Crisis teams are so fast, and a lot of matchups you can just put them on the table and it's fine. Especially if your opponent has very limited indirect fire like I did. Tyranids don't really have any like sort of interaction with you unless you're in the middle of the table. They just do their own thing and like sort of swarm. So if you just hide your models behind a building, they don't really like. I could like engage them with a gargoyle maybe, but that wasn't really going to do too much. And then my final game was against Ultramarines again, actually. And this time was Desolators. And unfortunately, we played really bad terrain. This wasn't like USO layouts. Most of the stores in my area play USO layouts. And that wasn't what we were playing today, which is sort of the stores terrain. And it was a terrain setup kind of like this, but the buildings were all like rounded. And my opponent had no place that a Desolation squad could stand and not get... I couldn't get line of sight to it from the middle, basically. So I think he should have... He didn't really notice it. We were both talking about how difficult the line of sight was. But... I think he should have just put them in strategic reserve in case I went first, and I ended up going first. I advanced an Exocrine sort of laterally super far, got line of sight to the Desolators, and the Exocrine just absolutely lights out rolled and killed 9 of them, and a Biovore killed the last one. So just like ripped the Desolators off the table, and it was all downhill from there. But those were my games, anyway. And there was a sequitur from that, and I don't remember what it was. But, yeah. So the reason that I brought that up was that there was no Eldar at the event. And I think it was largely because the local community has just, like, disincentivized people from playing Eldar, right? Like, it's like, especially if you're looking for practice games. Iki wants to come back. If you're looking for practice games, right, and you're playing casually, your local community doesn't want to play against you if you're playing Eldar. You'll basically only get to play competitive games, and I don't think your competitive games are going to be that fulfilling, especially at the local level, because, you know, you get the W, but it's super easy. So, yeah, I think there's probably like a glut or a dearth of people playing Eldar right now outside of those like top 8, top 5 players, because or people like who are religiously traveling to GTs because the factions look so stupid currently. I don't think it goes so much for Genestealer cults. I think Genestealer cults, they'll come out of the woodwork pretty often, but Eldar, I have been seeing less and less people playing Eldar simply because like the non-competitive play experience is so bad. Should Aventus start to ban Space Wolves in GSE? No, I don't think so. I'm not a huge fan of like faction bans. I think that they're too like one-dimensional. I think like honestly, we'll see a balance update in what, 3 weeks. Like just suffer through it. To be fair, I think that it is a problem currently, but in next month it will probably not even be an issue, and I think we'll be in a much better situation. We'll see a balance update. We'll see those factions get hit a little bit. We'll see some of the bad factions get propped up, and then I think 10th edition is going to be in a strong spot. So I think it's like it's a little bit of a price to pay for the time being, but until then, it is what it is. If you want to play actual 40k, you got to play with all the factions in the game, and it's up to people to play what they think is going to be the most interesting. GSC takes scale. I agree with that for sure. GSC is probably out of factions that are super well performing late, like recently. I think GSC is one of the tougher factions to be released at a state that's super strong. A lot of times, like factions get released at a state where you could just point guns at your opponent and then call it a day. But I think GSC, if you're not super good on positioning, you're not good on time, you're not good on like primary objective manipulation, then you actually are probably not a very good Genestealer cult player. And it takes practice. The balancing is way too slow. I agree with you for the time being. I'm a big fan of slower like meta rotation. Not super slow, not like we've seen in the past where we get like one a year or one every 6 months. But I think quarterly is good, or quadra-annually, as it were. Things get too difficult to assess if the faction's moving very quickly. And then you also you're into hobby lag, right? So if you're seeing like balance updates every 2 months, it takes most people 2 months to paint an army. So if they painted an army to go to a GT, and the GT, once they finish the army, the rules for the GT are different. Like that's just crappy, man. That just sucks. And I've experienced that too. Like I've painted whole units for armies, or I've assembled armies, or I've practiced with an archetype that then gets nerfed before an event. I'm like, fuck, all right, well, get dicked over, I guess. So I think that a slower rotation is fine. I do think that because it was release, it would have been good to see, at least for the first 3 months, it would have been good to see faster balance changes. Because, I mean, clearly there's going to be some mistakes, right? Like, there's no way there's not. And we saw a couple, and it feels like Games Workshop thought that the few things they did to Eldar was good enough, and it clearly wasn't. So, I think in the future, I think that quarterly updates is good. I would have liked to see maybe like bi-monthly updates or monthly updates for the first quarter of the game, but we got what we got. Find it odd that more than half the armies have no chance to win a GT. Is that right? Like 0 chance. I mean, it's like there's so many variables, right? The question is, do they have a chance to beat Eldar? And the answer is no. But if you're, I mean, like obviously, right? If we look at like, we just talked so much about this boardroom GT. If we look at this boardroom GT, right? Like there's like sons of factions in the top here that aren't Eldar because the Eldar players didn't show up. So I think it's less of a question like, can you win a GT? And more of a question, can you beat the top 2-3 factions in the game? And the answer right now is no, and I think that's largely a indictment of those top 3 factions. Do I think that we can Oaths a moment when they nerf hammer the Eldar, GSC, and Knights? No. I don't think so at all. I don't think Space Marines even need a nerf, to be fair. I think Space Marines are really good, but I think they're really good in a way that is like toolboxy and requires skill. If you compare army rules in a vacuum with each other, Oaths a moment is one of the strongest army rules that like we've ever seen in 40k. But you also then have to keep in mind that Space Marines are a faction that's like almost entirely predicated on shooting you with strength 5 guns. So comparing army rules in a vacuum doesn't mean anything. And I think Space Marine, if you nerfed Oath of Moment, Space Marines would go from being like a top 5-ish faction to being just garbage, just terrible. And that would be sad. So I don't think Space Marines need to get nerfed at all. I think Space Marines are really good, but I think Space Marines are good in a way that isn't as unhealthy as people think it is. People are just sad, like people don't like Oath of Moment being used against them is the problem, because like seeing somebody roll a bunch of rerolls into successes is frustrating. But as the Space Marine player, like your attacks outside of the Oath of Moment target are largely very bad, and so you really like only get to kill one thing a turn for most of the game. Yeah, I would say like if you put Oaths of Moment in another faction, like if you put Oaths of Moment in, I don't know, like something so sort of mid-tier, you know, like Tyranids, or I got Tyranids on the brain because I was just playing them. Like I'm in a lot of factions of the game, then I think it does become super dumb. But because Space Marine weapon profiles, their high damage weapon profiles are super low volume, and most of their weapon profiles are like heavy bolter equivalents, right? We're just looking at like these lists with mass heavy intercessors and grav cannons, and those weapons largely, unless they're, grav cannons obviously you shoot at vehicles, but those weapons without those specific targets and the specific situations are very bad at shooting most things in the game. Sisters might be okay with those at the moment. They're shooting like a couple multi-meltas at you, and you're like, okay, cool, you got it, girl. Sisters already like reroll most of the time on the stuff that's important for them anyway. Like honestly, even if you put Oaths of Moment in like, I don't know. If you put it in Death Guard, it's like maybe okay, I guess. They're kind of low volume. Adeptus Mechanicus might be busted with Oaths of Moment. Actually, I think Adeptus Mechanicus would be busted with Oaths of Moment because they have like such like decent volume ranged attacks. I actually think they would be very good with that rule. Oath losing reroll wins. Eldar roll better than Oath at the moment. Is it? Strands of Fate? Maybe. It's like more consistent, I guess. But rerolling, I don't know, getting 1/6 per shooting phase versus rerolling all of your hits and wounds seems at least equivalent. Mind boggles. The sisters lost 20-man squads. Yeah, same. It's nuts. It's very crazy. Oath losing reroll wounds? No way. you couldn't do that. You would need to do something else to Space Marines to recoup the losses. I think that what I don't want to do is like project this opinion that I think Space Marines are broken. I think Space Marines, like the title of the video, Space Marines are the only good army. But that's because the other armies that have a winning win record are broken as hell, and I don't think that's the case for Space Marines. They're the only probably functionally balanced army right now, and I think that other factions can compete just fine with them. It's just that they die to the other stuff in the game, in the metagame. Every unit gets to reroll anyway against all targets. That's not an army ability, though. That's a detachment ability. You can't conflate the two different types of abilities, because detachment rolls tend to be more niche and more focused than army abilities. I think a lot of times detachment abilities are stronger, too. Yeah, so that's a false comparison. You compare Battle Host to Combat Doctrines, and I do think those are probably Combat Doctrines is definitely not as strong as Battle Host, but it's not like a blowout, I think. Especially because the Battle Host unparalleled foresight doesn't synergize with anything, whereas Combat Doctrines gives you this constant flexibility within a Space Marine game plan. Whereas Eldar are I attack good. Ooh. It's almost like they have two different. They're like the polar opposites of each other, right? Like the Space Marine army ability makes them attack better, but their detachment ability makes them very flexible. Whereas the Eldar detachment ability lets them spend 6s on offense, defense, movement, whatever they want to do, so it's very flexible. But their army ability is that they attack good, or their detachment ability, excuse me, is that they attack good. Do I play Age of Sigmar? I do not. I would play Seraphon, though, because I love it, Lizardmen. I play Lizardmen in Total War, and I played them in Warhammer Fantasy back in the day. And the new Seraphon models are pretty sweet. They're a little, I don't know. They're a little scaly, I guess. But, not that they physically have scales. They just look like scaly, personas. All right, chat. I'm going to go ahead and pop off. I think we're kind of winding down here, so I think we're going to call that a show. Thanks, everyone, for coming and hanging out with me for this early show. I have it set up to redirect you to the Invitational Finals. That's going to be in just over 1 hour. So if you want to come watch one of the tightest and craziest games of Warhammer 40k that you've ever seen in your freaking life, please come watch T5S2 Season 7 Invitational Grand Finals. It's going to be a barn burner of a game. I'm super excited for it. Eldar versus Adeptus Custodes. There's going to be Wraith Knights happening. There's going to be crazy charges getting made. And it's all going to be live on stream for your viewing pleasure. So please come hang out with me over there. Otherwise, I'm going to be live on Twitch all week over on the Purple channel. We've got some pod finals happening Thursday, I think. I'm playing BCO finals on Friday. And then I'm playing a bunch of other games as well, competitive games, with a couple different factions. I have a Tyranid game lined up. I have a couple of Space Marine games lined up. It's going to be good. I'm excited. So please come hang out with me over there. And how about the Total War trailer? It was nice to see the actual trailer, not just like a short story in a PDF that I wasn't going to read. But yeah, Changeling. Wild. What a weird character to bring into Total War, but that's cool. Cool. Cheers, everybody. I will see you in the next stream, so please don't go anywhere, or at least if you do so, don't go away for too long, because I'm about to go set that game up. So I'll see you in 1 hour. Thank you so much, and cheers.